Went to play football, I was running with the ball, I got tackled from behind. Why behind? Because I was cursed with the lack of speed. My last name is Swift, and I have disappointed so many people. I had a coach freshman year that told me, Swift, I love your hustle, but if you were in a race with a pregnant woman, you'd come in third place. So I know I wasn't fast, but it never stopped me from playing sports. So I just got tackled from behind. Somebody grabbed me around the waist. I fell, nobody fell on my head, I broke my neck. That's the day I became a quadriplegic. Paralyzed from the neck down. They have no idea why I would break my neck on something so simple. It wasn't a collision, it wasn't anything that should have caused that type of injury. So that being said, in 1979, the life of a C6 quadriplegic read much like a Stephen King novel. I mean, it was, don't forget, this is before technology. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers. I think they had just come out with beta machines and maybe Pong, you know, Pong where the ball went back and forth and that was your enjoyment. That was it. The statistics for what your life was going to be like was absolutely horrible. Less than 15% of people who, first of all, you either went into a nursing facility or you went home and prayed that your family would help take care of you. So less than 15% of people would ever drive that were quads. Less than 15% would go get a formal education. But don't forget, there was no online schools at that time. You had to get out of the house, go get educated. There was no getting married. There was no having a family, owning a house. Most people, less than 15% work full time. So it was, that story read pretty horrible. I was blessed because I did not want to become a statistic. And you heard somebody talk earlier about, you know, the things that happen to us that affect us. At that, I chose for that not to ruin my life, but there's a key to that. And I have to share the story of my father, whom I've been blessed with, a mom who drove faith into me and was always calm about what happened to me. Just keep going forward. God has his plan. We don't know why things happen. Just keep moving forward. So it was 3 weeks after I got hurt, I was at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which back then was RIC. And it was second week in January. My father came up to visit me. Saw him come in, took off his overcoat, he sat down next to me, and I probably was a little dicey, a little salty. Why? Because at the end of that month, I turned 18. Now, turning 18, and being in a wheelchair where I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't barely push the wheelchair, having tubes come out, that's not the way you plan your 18th birthday. At any time in our history, just think 18 was kind of that passage. So we sat down. I forget what we talked about. I don't even remember, but after 10 minutes, he got up, went and got his overcoat, came back to the table, put his coat on, and looked down at me, and he said, if I ever come up here again and you're not smiling, I'm going to turn around and leave. I'm not coming up here if you're in bad spirits. Then he looked down at me and he said, it is your job to keep this family together. It's your job to keep the family happy. It is your job to make sure that we feel good, because if you're not smiling, the family won't smile. He said, if you're in good spirits, the family will be in good spirits. If you're smiling, we will be smiling. And I didn't really think about it. I don't think it fazed me at that time. That was just my dad. I mean, I knew the man loved me, but that was just him. You know, he's the same man that told me over the following summer, he had walked into the house, he heard me saying something to my mother, which was probably slightly sarcastic for those that know me. And I don't think he heard the whole story, but just to give you an idea of my dad, he walked by me, and I think he thought I was looking for sympathy or whatever it was, and I don't think I was. I think he was just joking with my mom. And he looked at me and said, hey, listen, If you're looking for sympathy, you can find it in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. And then he just walked into the living room, popped on the TV, sat down and watched TV. I know that frightens people, or people may think it's horrid, but that was just my dad. I mean, he just said it, walked. That was it. It was that simple. That night, and I really didn't think about it, but that night while I was laying in bed, I think I finally had a chance to think about it. And I'm laying in bed, and my eyes well up. And I'm thinking, I can't be the man that I was being brought up to be. I can't shovel the snow. I can't go over to my grandma and aunt's house who live 3 houses away and make sure their driveway is clear. I don't know if I'm going to ever play football. I'm going to ever play baseball. I'm never going to play basketball. And will I ever date? I can't drive. I had a 1950 Oldsmobile Bubble Coupe with a 455 engine in it that was trouble that I'm thinking, I'm never going to get a chance to even get a ticket in it. So a lot of things went through my head at that time. It was a tough time, and I'm laying there with tears rolling down my face, thinking, how do I keep my family together through this traumatic injury? I can't even wipe the tears. I'm sure at that point I had a snot bubble, couldn't wipe that off my face. And I just kept thinking of and echoing a prayer my grandmother taught me and my mom's faith that, like, it'll be fine, just keep moving forward. It'll be fine, just keep moving forward. And that's what I did. That's what I did. That was my responsibility, because my accident didn't happen just to me. And I know some people commented on this. My accident probably happened for me. Because if it wasn't for my accident, there's no way I would have accomplished what I've accomplished in life. There's no way I'd be the man I am today. I can say that with 100% certainty. I've been asked that 100 times. I've been asked, if you could go back and not get hurt and walk, would you give up everything you have? Without hesitancy, no. Would never do that. So I moved forward. I went to school, got on the yellow bus, went to junior college. After 2 years of junior college, and I got home on a Friday, I started school like a week later. There was no not being busy, not moving forward. That was just the way my family and my relationship with even my friends was. We're gonna keep doing things. So 2 years later, I graduated from junior college. Okay, by that time I had a plan. I was going to then go to a 4-year university. Next 2 years, got on the yellow bus, which I hated. Why? Probably because I made fun of it when I wasn't going on the yellow bus. But I was on the yellow bus being driven to school. And 2 years later, I graduated from college. When I graduated from college, which only took me 4 years, so school can be completed in 4 years. I was also driving. So during that time, I learned how to drive. I did therapy every day. Every day I did some form of therapy. Started just by riding down to the end of the driveway, then up and down the driveway, then to the corner, then around the block. By the time I graduated college, I was doing 5K marathons in my wheelchair. I was doing 10K marathons. So when I graduated college, I was playing wheelchair sports, I was driving. I was doing things that I'm not supposed to do. Why? Because I was not going to be the statistic, and there was a bigger and higher purpose for me. Yes. There was just something out there, and I had to stop listening to the negativity. We all have something. Like trauma happened to us when we were 5, 7, 15, 30. I do neuro-linguistics programming. I figured out how to move past. People ask me all the time, how do you deal with breaking your neck? How do you cope with it? Just like anything, how do you cope with your divorce? How do you cope with the girl breaking up with? How do you cope with not going to prom? I don't deal with it. I let it be. I learned to just let it be and put my focus on the things that I can make happen. And there's a little more to that. I'm kind of having to speed through some of this just because. But there's a way of just letting things be and not focusing on them. And you will mentally recover from them. It's just I'm not making it an issue, because we all know what you focus on is what happens to you. You will dive into something you're focusing on, and if it's lack of sleep, my guess is you're probably going to continue with the lack of sleep because you're constantly thinking about it, trying to figure it out. So how did this turn into $1 million story? I quit corporate. I worked in corporate then after I graduated. After I graduated college, I didn't know what I was going to do, and a little old nun at St. Xavier University said, "You're going to law school." I laughed. Why? Because I'm like, "Sister, I'm not that smart." My parents didn't go to college. I was going to go into the trades if I didn't get hurt. She goes, "No, you're going to take the LSAT this summer, you're going and try to get into law school." And I grew up going to parochial school, so we didn't say no to a nun. And there was a whole fear factor. So I took the LSAT. I got into law school, and 3 years later, when I graduated from DePaul College of Law, was driving, was coaching athletics, was still playing wheelchair sports, and that summer I got married. So I just kept moving forward. I am so proud to say she has stayed with me for 35 years. I know she's still got a smile after 35 years. And if I learned anything after 35 years, we're constantly working on me. So one day I will be that guy instead, because he's that perfect museum piece in my life. I'm that building that's, got tarps and scaffolding around it. So we're constantly working on me, and I'm okay with that, because I will constantly move forward. But we've been married for 35 years. We've got 3 kids, all adopted. I've done everything they said I couldn't do. I chose not to be that statistic. I chose to focus on the stuff I could focus on. Now, what does this have to do with $1 million story? Your $1 million story. Because you all have one. Trust me, I know you do. You have a story, and it's only your story. Well, Dominic, my good friend, said, "Have you ever looked at how much money your story has made you?" Because after 20 years of working in corporate leadership and sales, I got out, I got John Maxwell certified to become a coach and a speaker. I wanted to start a nonprofit, and I wanted to write 1 book. Well, I accomplished the John Maxwell speaking and coaching, got my certificate, started to get out there. I wrote my first book. Well, I was writing my first book. We started a nonprofit. So we have a 501c3 nonprofit called SOAR. We help people get back outdoors, people with disabilities. So I started down that path then. But how does that lead to your $1 million story? And it's kind of like a grade for me. So as I got out there and started talking, and as I put my book out there, as you heard Rick talk about, I would always sell my book wherever I was speaking. So I love speaking because it led me to a ton of sales. So as I spoke, I also sold the book. As I would also speak, I would talk about my coaching. That would lead me to talking about my nonprofit, our nonprofit. Now, the neat thing with that is, as you heard Dominic about, yes, we have driven over $1 million into between speaking, coaching, and then what came up, I would get calls saying, "I heard you're the guy to talk about disabilities." I go, "Maybe, what are you doing?" And it was a car company, a big car company, that said, "We're opening an area of our company where we're doing mobility, and we want to start making vans and making accessible cars. So we hear you're the guy that kind of understands it." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been in the disability community for 45 years. A week later, they hired me. A week later, I'm doing commercials for them. They didn't know what they didn't know, but after spending 45 years in the disability community, I was the guy they heard to go to. So I started getting a lot of consulting jobs, which I didn't plan on, that started to make me money that I didn't even think about making. During that time of coaching, consulting, writing books, I got a call from a guy I was on his radio show, and he asked, "Do you ever think about being on the radio?" I was like, "Hell no. I don't have the bandwidth." He goes, "I'll show you how to do it. You have to sign a 13-week contract, and then I'll show you everything you need to do." I said, "All right." So I signed a 13-week contract, learned what I had to do, went out, got sponsors, and I started doing a show on WJOL 1340 AM called The Quadfather, All Things Inspirational. Now, the interesting thing about that is, now I'm into it 3 years. I've been doing the radio show for 3 years. And guess what happens? Now I'm on the radio, and on the radio I get to talk about the nonprofit. I get to talk about, now I have guests on all the time. So I love having guests. There's people in this room who's been on my radio show. I know there's been a handful of people. Okay, if you look at all the people that have been on my radio show, I get to talk about the nonprofit on the radio show. I get to talk about speaking. They know that I've been out there in the disability community. So now the radio show's driving interest into other things I'm doing. So it's just, you never know where your story's gonna take you. Just get it out there and keep going with your story. Last year, we go out occasionally and we go to a comedy club. And I told the owner I could do this. I could do comedy. He said, "No, you can't." I go, "I can do comedy." And he said, "Okay, you get in front of my staff, and if you can make them laugh, I'll let you try comedy." Okay, so I went in front of his staff, I made him laugh, and he put me on his comedy list. I opened for J.J. Walker last year doing comedy. Now that being said, I didn't realize I was even being paid. I just thought, I'm doing this for shits and giggles because I enjoy it. So I ended up doing numerous times he's called me to say, "Hey, I got a guy who's like, do you want to come on and do comedy?" I was like, "Heck yeah." So now I'm on my 3rd or 4th time doing comedy and being paid for comedy, which I absolutely love. It's frightening as all get out. But so now I've got, my stories led me to do comedy, a radio show, our nonprofit. I've written 9 books, 2-time best-selling author, and I just keep going because all I know how to do is keep going. What does this have to do with being, and you've all got a sheet of paper. What I did is I wrote a storytelling workbook, and being a bit of a dinosaur, I thought, I'll just print out, 50, 100 copies, kill a couple trees, and then down Dominic or Julie said, "Why don't you just make a QR code?" I'm like, "That's great. How the hell do you make a QR code?" "All right, Julie, make me a QR code." So the paper you have on your desk will, one, give you my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. And there's a storytelling workbook that will help you maybe hone your story a little better than it is, or maybe it'll help you think about, is this where I want my story to go? Is this what I want my story to really, is this the mark I want my story to leave? So I was planning on spending a little time going through this, but our time got cut short a little bit, but you could go to the QR code, please get it, keep the paper, or take the information off the paper because it has all of my contact information. Now let's talk about storytelling. Why is storytelling so popular? I'm not going to talk, but somebody tell me, what makes storytelling so popular? Anybody? You connect with your audience, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say relatable.
Absolutely. You know what? You become genuine, you become relatable. Anybody else?
Personal.
Absolutely.
Memorable.
Yes.
It touches the emotion.
Emotion. When you, that is, they say great storytellers can touch emotion. And I can prove it. Some of the best music, I'm going to argue, was made in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It just is. I didn't make the rules, but it's awesome music. What is it? What were those great songs made in the maybe even 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? They were stories put to lyrics, right? That's all they were. They were stories put to amazing lyrics. and they became songs that we're still singing. You're still hearing, you just heard a bunch of young guys that, I don't know how old they were, sing songs that were probably, that they were not around for, but you know what, they're still there. And even more powerful, think about this. Anybody out here have parents?
Yeah.
Fine. Parents, kids, tell me that if you listen to the song Cats in the Cradle, that you don't get a tear in your eye. Come on, does anybody not get a tear in their eye when you hear it? Tell me you don't get a tear in your eye when you listen to that song. That's how powerful stories are. They're amazing. And everybody here has a story. So understand, just think about Cats in the Cradle. Think about what it does to you emotionally. That's what your stories do. It empowers people. It gets them to move. So grab that hat out of the bag. So my last thing, and this is important because I said it in the beginning, is what do you do after this show? So this is a Cre8tive Con hat. It may or may not have a $50 bill inside it. So who wants a Cre8tive Con hat? Look at all the hands up. Who wants it? You want it as bad as you. Who wants to be successful out here?
Me.
Who wants to write $1 million story? Hey, who wants the hat?
Me.
Everybody wants it?
Brian, I would like
Who
that.
wants the hat? No? Who wants it? Who wants
Go
it?
Holy cow!
Here's my point. Here's my point. Everybody wants something, right? No, there's no $50 bill, sorry. But here's the bottom line. We all want things and we're all willing to raise our hand, but without action, it doesn't mean shit.
Lori jumped on that stage she was taking action.
So here's the bottom line. Everybody here has cards. Everybody here has numbers, stuff in your phone. If you don't commit to calling those numbers and making an appointment to have, whether it be a Zoom or a chat on the phone or meet, then this is all for naught. You just missed out. Without action, nothing happens. Everybody raised their hand in here, but how many people, I guarantee you, by Friday, I will have talked to everybody's contact that I have. And if you call me, I will get back to you. If you email, I will get back to you. So please don't leave here without taking action. One last thing, and I know I'm down to my -1 minute. I wouldn't be here, and a lot of us wouldn't, and we have to thank Julie and Donna. And listen, the people